Today we have Mike Matthews, and Mike is going to be talking about jet setting with an iPhone. And with that, we've had enough interruptions. Let's have Mike share his screen. And Mike, you are muted right now. So, Mike, if you could please welcome and join us.
Okay, I have unmuted and I can't start screen sharing. There we go. Now we
There you
can
are.
do it.
Hmm.
Okay, so here we are again. Welcome back from your summer hiatus. We're here to talk about jet setting with an iPhone. I've taught this class a couple times to some various adult school classes, and it's been pretty well received. So you have a lengthy handout here. We probably won't cover everything on here, but we will cover much of it. Also get some feedback maybe from folks about what they've used when jet setting with their own iPhone. So let me get in here. Oh, look at this. The plane just flew in. This is my contact info. And if you need to get a hold of me, this is where you can find me. You guys have great resources here in this group. If you need questions answered, I'm sure someone in the group can help you. But if not, if you need to get a hold of me, this is where you can find me. So we're going to talk about a few basic categories today. What you should do to get started before you head out on a trip. Some tools you can use for planning and collaborating, and apps that are helpful for jet setting with your iPhone. So those are that's the slides. Let's get out of the slides, and I will now share my phone with you. Okay, so before you head out, it's an idea to maybe get yourself what I would call an itinerary app. There are some tools that are built into the Maps app that can help with some of this. But what I'm really talking about is an app like Kayak or TripIt or Tripsy or all kinds of different itinerary apps that you can get for your phone. I'm going to show you one of them. It's called Kayak, and it looks like this. All these itinerary apps are typically free to set up. And I'm signed in right here. And this app gathers for you all in one place and also allows you to book flight reservations, hotel rooms, rental cars, that sort of thing. The beauty of this is that if you sign up with an app like Kayak or TripIt and you set up a free account with them, the non-beauty of it is you'll get bombarded with flight and hotel ideas, but you can take information that you gain in email messages from airlines and hotels, things that contain flight itineraries, confirmation numbers, reservation numbers, that sort of thing, and email them to an address at Kayak. I think it's called trips@kayak.com or maybe trips@tripit.com. And the big brains back at the app headquarters can parse the information in those emails and create trips for you automatically and add the trip information directly into the app itself. So for example, down here at the bottom of my screen where I have this trips button, I have a bunch of past trips that are in here. So here was a trip that I made to New York way back in 2019. And you can see there's flight information that's in here. There's restaurant information. The flight information came from an email that United sent to me that confirmed my travel plans. I simply forwarded that email to a standard address at Kayak, and then Kayak created the trip, plugged in the flight itinerary information. I didn't have to do anything, really. I didn't have to retype anything. I didn't have to risk making any typos or errors. It was all just taken care of for me. Now, once you have the information in a travel app or an itinerary app like, say, Kayak, you can use the share button to share this information, send a link to the trip to other people. If somebody else that you're traveling with also has a Kayak account, you can add the trip to their account. It will show up on their devices. So an itinerary planning app or an itinerary app can be really, really helpful in terms of just organizing the trip as a whole. There's all kinds of apps out there. You can also get some other random travel apps that you might want to have handy, like Airbnb or Expedia or TripAdvisor. Those are all available on the App Store, all of them pretty much for free. Just be prepared to be bombarded with special offers after you sign up. There's other apps that allow you to actually book travel, including Kayak. Hopper, airline apps are good to have handy. Hotel apps, car rental apps. A lot of hotels now are using use your phone to unlock your door. And so having those apps on your phone in advance can save you a lot of trouble down the line. You should also think about how to get your phone ready. For example, you should maybe create a list in the Reminders app that includes all the stuff you need to take with you, whether it's external batteries, plug adapters, cables. Everybody got their USB-C cables on order for your iPhone changeover here on Friday? You should also make sure that you've got Find My iPhone turned on in case your phone goes missing on you. That's really easy to do in the Settings app. You just tap your name, and down here there's a choice called Find My. And when you tap Find My iPhone at the top of the screen, make sure that these switches are all turned on so that you can locate your missing device from some other device you have, or maybe even somebody else's device that they have. And before you go, make sure that you're backing up your iPhone to iCloud. I'm sure most of you are probably already doing this, but inside your Apple ID info under iCloud, there's a simple switch here for iCloud backup. You should make sure that you're backing your phone data up just in case something goes sideways with your phone. So now you're going to go overseas and you're going to want to use your phone. And you have a carrier here at home, but what are you going to do when you get overseas? You should probably check in advance, based upon the areas of the world you're going to be going to, about the availability of cell service. And the first stop that I would make actually is to check with your existing carrier and see what sort of service plans they may offer. Usually that's a little bit more expensive than getting cell service from an overseas provider, but it's also a little bit easier to do. But if you don't want to do that, if you decide that you do want to pick up cell service in some other country overseas because you're going to be over there for several weeks, it's going to be cheaper to do so. Keep in mind that probably everybody on this call has an iPhone that has a couple things built into it. One is an eSIM, which is a hardware built into the phone that does not require the use of a SIM card to be inserted into the SIM tray in this side of the phone. Apple last year with the iPhone 14, I believe, got completely away from SIM cards. Everything is an eSIM with those phones. And in fact, most or if not all of you probably have a phone that has at least one eSIM built into it and a SIM tray for a SIM card, giving your phone the ability to have two active phone numbers at one time. Some of you may have an iPhone 14 or later, which will have two eSIMs and no SIM tray involved at all. So the beauty of eSIMs is that you don't have to worry about losing a SIM card. You can frequently just add cell service to your phone through a carrier by simply scanning a QR code with the camera on your phone. Your phone can also hold numerous bits of eSIM data and store them on the phone, and then you can choose to activate them or deactivate them as you see fit. So if you're traveling throughout Europe, let's say, and you want to get cell service from a number of providers while you're there, you can get your phone kind of ready to go with service from a number of different providers and then activate the eSIM service that you want to use at a given time. So if you want to take a look at where all this is located, it's inside the Settings app, right here under Cellular. So in my case, I have an iPhone 14 Pro, and you can see that I've got T-Mobile service running on one of my eSIMs. And I also have the ability to add another eSIM down here. So tapping this button would take me through the steps to add another set of service from a cellular provider. So I can either transfer it from a nearby phone, or I can use a QR code that would be provided to me by the carrier itself. It's very slick. It's actually quite good. You can also check in the Settings app under General and About. And if you scroll up a bit, you'll see, in my case, I have one eSIM that is using T-Mobile, and I have another available SIM. This is another available eSIM that has a whole different IMEI number. The IMEI number is what basically registers your phone with the cell provider. So if you take a look at the Settings, General, About screen, you'll be able to tell how capable your phone is of using both SIMs and eSIMs. But I'm guessing that most of you have a recent enough phone that you all have the ability to have two different SIMs running and maybe two different eSIMs running. So one of the big benefits of this is that you can leave your existing cell coverage in place on your phone. And then when you get overseas, you can just use an eSIM and not have to worry about taking a card out or worrying about the service. It's a great, great convenience. So do check on that in advance of going and find out what the best option is for you. Is it to just buy cellular service from your existing carrier overseas, or maybe get service from a local carrier once you're there? Another thing to think about is when you're traveling overseas, you might want to think about cutting off cellular data for some things that maybe you're used to using here. Like, for example, I have an unlimited cellular plan with T-Mobile, so I'm really not too worried about whether or not I exceed a data limit, because I probably won't exceed a data limit. But if you buy a data package overseas that has a cap on it, you might need to alter the way you use your phone to make sure you don't blow through that data cap prematurely. So things like streaming podcasts or accessing, in particular, the Photos app, iCloud Photos, which by default wants to use Wi-Fi only and will use cellular if you let it. You might want to think about, if you've got a data cap, maybe restricting your use of iCloud Photos to just using Wi-Fi and not using cellular at all. Also, we probably, most of us here, are using Apple's Messages app and iMessage service to communicate with people. Overseas, there's a whole bunch of other messaging services that are probably in the front seat when it comes to who's driving the bus. WhatsApp is very popular overseas. You might want to consider getting messaging apps with different services, just in case you need to communicate with somebody who's using a different messaging app than you are. Those apps are typically free. You create an account, and then you communicate in a very similar way as using the Messages app on your phone. But some examples of that are things like WhatsApp, WeChat. If you're concerned about security, maybe Signal and Telegram, which are a little bit more secure in nature. You might want to think about those as well. And speaking of security, you might want to think about getting a VPN. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. In essence, when you have a VPN service, your device encrypts its data before it sends it through the internet through what's called a secure tunnel. And the data that goes from your device out to the internet and back again is encrypted end to end. And so if somebody is snooping around on your transmissions, they're just going to get encrypted data and not be able to do anything with it. There's a number of good VPN providers out there. ExpressVPN is one that the geeks all seem to like. There's another one called Proton VPN that offers a free VPN service for a limited amount of data. The way these things work is you can download the software for free, but then you pay a subscription fee to use the service. And you can probably turn this on or off on a month-by-month basis, or depending on how much traveling you're doing, maybe a yearly subscription is best for you. But once you turn the VPN on, and you can see I've got a little switch here at the bottom of the screen with the VPN switch. Once you turn that VPN switch on, your data gets encrypted, end to end from your phone to the internet and back again. Be careful about where you decide to get a VPN. For example, I'm not sure you'd want to get a VPN in a country that spies on its citizens. So when you search the App Store for VPN software, all you need to do is just type in the words VPN in the search field. And you'll get plenty of hits. So the apps, again, are typically free. The service is what you'll end up paying for. But take a look and make sure that the VPN company is located in a country that you feel you can trust. So that's what I've got for setting up and getting ready. Sheeta, do you want to take any questions now? Do you have anything?
Yes, we do. We have several questions for you. Hank
Okay.
Humphrey, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Frank Sturgevich, you are next.
Hi, Mike. Hank Humphrey here. Does Kayak share their info, your info, with other people like TripAdvisor? I find that they just keep bombarding, because they know where I am.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. All right.
I haven't read through their terms of use lately. I also haven't traveled much lately, as you can see. I do know that if you go onto an app like Kayak and you search for airline fares, you'll get a few emails as a follow-up if you don't book anything, suggesting, well, here's a good one for you. Here's another good one for you. In my experience has been they kind of peter out after a while. You hear from them for about 2 or 3 days or maybe a week later, and then that's it. They don't bug me too much. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's some data sharing going on between Kayak and the companies that they are kind of partnering with here, whether it's a rental car company or Airbnb or whatever it may be.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Frank.
Yes, Mike. I have Verizon as my provider, and I have international travel plan, which allows me to use my service overseas. They charge me $10 a day. My question is, if I install and enable eSIM card overseas, once I activate it, will that automatically disable my Verizon service? Otherwise, I'll be charged twice.
I don't think it will automatically disable it, but I think you can go in and disable it yourself. But if you're, I don't know the Verizon subscription terms, but if you're paying X amount of dollars a month, you're probably going to get charged for that, whether you're using it or not, right?
No, when I'm overseas, it automatically activates this international travel plan that charges $10 for every 24-hour period.
Oh, okay. So I would think you might want to turn that off then if you decide to get something local.
And how would you turn that off?
Well, again, in the settings app, if you go to cellular, I only have one active line on my phone right now, but if you tap settings and then cellular, you can see I can turn this T-Mobile line on or off with this switch. And so if I had a second carrier on my other eSIM, I'd have similar options here as well, I think, to be able to turn that line on or off. If you have 2 active eSIMs on your phone, you can make a phone call from either one of the providers. But I believe only one of the providers can provide data at a time. So I don't have a second line here to show you, but there may be a way to say, I want to make T-Mobile or the overseas provider the primary use of data when I have both of them active.
Okay. Now, when you install the eSIM card, will that assign a new local phone number to your phone?
It's supposed to do that. That's right. If you get like a month's worth of service overseas somewhere, you get a local phone number.
I see.
Along with the data.
Thanks,
so your
Mike.
phone actually has 2 phone numbers at the same time.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Linda McNeil, does your question relate to what we're talking about now? Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I do. I was told Hide Me, a VPN, was built on a Mac for a Mac. Several people have used it because I've wondered how it's stacked to some of the others because it's both free and or paid. But as with a VPN, you never know. And I just wondered if it had any information out there.
Here it is. It's the world's fastest VPN, they say. So if we tap here, it looks like there are some in-app purchases, but I'm not exactly sure what those might be. Let's see. So here's details about it. It's got some nice reviews. And if I go down here to in-app purchases, yeah, so there's like a subscription fee I think you have to pay to use the service. Again, the app is free to download. That's what this get button means up here in the upper right-hand corner.
And there's a free button too. And then they've been having bulk sales for 2 years for like $80 or $60, something like that.
Okay. Have you used it yourself?
No, but I'm considering, 3 people that do. You can download it onto the phone, and it's the free plan, or you can log on to it. I've just been concerned because when you're in so many places out in the world with these scammers that come on and can just catch on to what's on your phone, I thought it would be a protection device.
Yeah. Take a look at the reviews and stuff. That stuff's pretty important. I know the geeks like ExpressVPN and Proton VPN, which is one that I have. It offers actually free limited service, right? So in the Proton VPN section here, Swiss-based, they put that up front, right? Your data is protected by strict privacy laws. It's the world's only free VPN service that is safe to use and respects your privacy. So I think they give you a certain amount of data per month at a certain speed. And so if you want to go to like a higher speed device, then you need to like pay the monthly subscription.
Mm-hmm.
But you can read the details about it in the description.
Yeah, that's nice because they don't keep track of your name or anything.
Yeah, logging is a big issue. Like they say, strictly no logs, right? Unlimited data with no bandwidth or speed restrictions. I think, see, the VPN accelerator, I think, is the, I think you get access to more if you pay the premium fee, is what it basically boils down to.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mike, all yours.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about collaboration. Apple's got a number of apps that you can use to make a collaboration with other people who are traveling with you or who are waiting for you at home a little bit easier. The Notes app is one place where you can do some collaboration. For example, I could go to the Notes app and I could go to my folder list and create a folder like trip. And inside this folder, I can create a note. Here's where I'm going. And there's a little share button up here at the top of this note that you can tap, and you can share this note with other people who are using Apple services. I have a choice here where I can collaborate on this note, or I can send somebody a copy of the note. If you allow collaboration to occur, then the people you've invited can also edit the note at the same time. So for example, you could create a list of places that you're going, things you want to see in certain cities, any number of things that you want to share with somebody else and keep it active between the two of you. Create a shared note and invite other people to participate in it. Another option is packing lists, right? We all have to create lists of things we're going to take with us when we go overseas or we're going to travel anywhere. The Reminders app is a good tool for this. Some of the travel planning apps used to have packing lists built into them. I'm not sure they still do. And there are lots of travel packing apps out there that you can get. But the Reminders app can do this just as easily. So if you open the Reminders app and you create a new list, and I call this suitcase, let's say, and I start adding things to it, like a phone, chargers. Etc. There's a share button up here at the top as well. And when I tap the share button, I can share this list with somebody else, inviting them, say through messages or mail. When they receive the invitation, they tap the link that they receive, and this suitcase list will show up right on their device. And between the two of you or multiple people, you can collaborate to check things off, make sure things are being added to the list or removed from the list. And in fact, once you end up adding somebody to a list like this, you can assign certain things to certain people. I'll give you an example with a grocery list that I have here because I don't have any other shared list, but I've got a grocery list that we're sharing in our family, and I can take this item, cheese tortellini, and once a list is shared, you'll see a little human head button down here above the keyboard that you can tap and assign this particular reminder to a member of the list. So if you're getting ready to travel and you say, okay, Bob is going to make sure that he goes to the store and gets a couple of extra USB-C cables to bring, you can do that. That way, everybody who's got the list is not out getting the USB-C cables at the same time, for example. So the reminders list is actually pretty handy. And in fact, if you are going to be doing a lot of traveling, you could make the list into what's called a template for future travel. So for example, in this suitcase list that I have going here, instead of checking things off and then unchecking them all again for the next trip that I have coming up, I could tap the More button up here in the corner and I could save this list as a template. And then every time I open up this list, it basically creates a copy of it without anything checked off. So you could create one suitcase list, throw everything on there, make it a template. And then when you open that list in the future, it kind of takes off a fresh copy and allows you to work with it directly without disturbing the original template. How about bucket lists? The Reminders app can do a bucket list, places you want to go, things you want to see. You can also use the Apple Maps app to review guides. Now, this was added to the Maps app a few years ago. If I open the Maps app and okay, offline maps, thank you very much. If I go in here and I search the Maps app for, let's say, the city of Lisbon, you'll notice I've got a button here that says Guides. And if I tap that, it will show me places to go, things to do, nightlife, travel, etc. These guides are coming from third-party websites. You can see they're kind of badged here in the corner of these images. So for example, if I want to take a look at the best restaurants in Lisbon, here they come. So here's the guide. I can see on the map where they're located. And this is coming from Infatuation. So I can kind of scroll up here and get details about each of these places. So if this place here looks pretty good, I can tap the plus button in the corner and I can add this place to a guide that I can create. So you notice I've got some guides for Ireland, Rome, France, Paris. If I want to create a new guide, I can just scroll up in the list, tap a new guide, and I'm going to call this one Portugal and create. And now I have a new guide called Portugal with this location in it. And it can be things that you find on the map. You can add those to a guide if you like. And that's the guides feature that's built into the Maps app. So if I go up here, here's my list of guides. I've got one place listed here in Portugal. In addition, I can take this guide, and down here at the bottom, there's a little share button. I can share this guide with somebody else. I don't believe that this is a collaboration feature. So for example, you might want to build the guide before you travel and then share it with somebody else, and it would show up in the Maps app on their device. So there's no live collaboration going on with this, but it is a way to at least share some of this stuff in advance if you need to. So that's the guides feature. When you get overseas, you'll probably find that contactless payments are a big deal. As you probably know, they've become a big deal over here too, boosted in large part by the iPhone starting to use contactless payments and the pandemic, which really triggered the use of it. You might want to think about, before you go, setting up Apple Pay. If you're not using Apple Pay already with the Wallet app, you'll probably find you'll use it quite a bit overseas. So in the Wallet app, this is a whole bunch of stuff that I've got in my wallet, for example, all of these credit cards and the like. And you can just add new cards simply by tapping the plus button in the upper right-hand corner. And you can choose to add debit or credit cards. You can set up Apple Pay Later, which is a payment system. Adding a debit or credit card is as simple as just tapping this Add a Card button, tap Continue. And you can't see on your screen right now, but my phone has turned on its rear-facing camera. And you simply hold the credit card up to the camera. The phone will read the credit card info and add it to your wallet. We'll probably contact the bank in the interim just to approve your use of the card. But then once the card is there, you can use it to pay for things overseas. It's really super convenient, super safe, and much faster than using regular credit cards. Another thing you can do is make sure that you have your airline app on your phone, because your airline app will be used to check in for your flights and deliver you boarding passes electronically. I'll give you an example with United. I don't have any trips coming up, but if I had a trip on United, I could sign in to the app 24 hours in advance of the flight, check in for the flight. A boarding pass is delivered to my phone, and from the United app, inside an area called the wallet, inside the United app, the boarding passes will appear, and there'll be a big button on it that says Add to Apple Wallet. And when you do that, these boarding passes can show up in the Wallet app. Here's an example of a boarding pass from a previous flight. This just goes right into the Wallet app, so you're not fumbling with another app to try to find your travel info. And in fact, boarding passes are pretty smart. Under Pass Details, you can make sure that these switches are turned on so that if there's an update to the boarding pass, like a gate change, it'll be reflected on the pass. You can have the boarding pass give you notifications, like the flight is boarding, the gate is changed, whatever it may be. And you can also have this boarding pass be suggested on the lock screen when you reach the airport. So if, for example, you have a boarding pass in the Apple Wallet and you get to the airport about 3 hours or so before the flight is supposed to leave, because the phone knows where it is based on location services, and the Wallet app knows that you've got a boarding pass in there with a time and date that's pretty close to your arrival at the airport, the phone can pop up on the lock screen a notification about the boarding pass. You tap it, it goes right to the Wallet app, opens the boarding pass, and you're ready to go. So that's a benefit of having not only the airline app installed on your phone, but also using the Wallet app to store the boarding pass. Other things you might want to keep on your phone, there is not really a passport app per se. There is an app called Mobile Passport Control, which can simplify your re-entry into the United States. But there's all kinds of other travel apps like Clear, My TSA, that sort of stuff. You might want to take photos of some of your documents, like your passport or global entry card or something like that, but then maybe put those not just into the Photos app directly where anybody could see them in an album, maybe put them in the hidden album. The Photos app has, under the Albums tab, an album called a hidden album. And this hidden album is locked by default. It's protected by your device passcode. So if I wanted to open this hidden album, I could give it a tap and Face ID will see my face and unlock the hidden album and show me what's inside. In this case, it's an empty beer bottle, right? But you could, in the hidden album, store things like travel documents, picture of your passport, picture of your global entry card, picture of your vaccination card, maybe, just to have handy on your phone in case you need it. But it's protected, again, by your device passcode, which can be unlocked using Face ID or Touch ID. This is a good place to pause. Any questions, Cheetah?
You do. You have a question from Carl and Don and Bob. Carl, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Carl's question. Carl, are you here? Yes, you're here. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm here.
Nope. No problem.
My question is, in the past, when I've either got a physical SIM or an eSIM in a foreign country, I've needed to have my passport with me to do that. And I just wondered, has that changed, or do you still need your passport if you want a SIM or an eSIM with a local phone number?
I don't know. Does anybody know the answer to that? Which country were you in at the time?
Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Belgium.
Don't know.
If you don't need a local phone number, and a lot of times people don't need a local phone number, you just need a data connection. I've used the app Airlo, and that gives you, and it's very economical. You can take a look at it online, and if I sent you an invite, then I'd earn air money if you bought a card. But it's very cheap to buy if you're going on a cruise or you're going to Malaysia. You can buy a data package, and then you can use WhatsApp to call back home. The disadvantage is you do not have a local phone number. Airlo, AIRALO.
Spell that for me one more time.
AIRALO. There it is.
Okay. eSIM phone internet. eSIMs for 200 countries and regions. Okay.
You can buy it for a country. You can buy it for a region. You can buy a global eSIM. They're very easy to install, and they've got very clear, concise instructions with videos.
Yeah, here's the part you're talking about. Earn $3 for every friend you refer.
If I may, this is Eckhart. If I may just answer the question regarding the need for passports. I have traveled, all over the world, and I have to tell you, yes, that's true. In most countries, when you try to become part of communicate, and if you want to communicate in a country using a phone, the governments want to know who are you. So you have to identify yourself and to verify that you are the person you claim you are. So and the best thing in a foreign country is they would ask for your passport. It's not a big thing, but it's true. It's a need, it's a necessity, and I have gone through that in many cases. I just wanted to affirm that yes, you do need a passport if you try to get a SIM card or even an eSIM. And the other thing is that I want to add, if you use your own phone traveling and you don't stop the cellular use of data, you can spend a small fortune in a very short period of time. So I really warn you, if you travel, go to your cellular options and cellular data, and if you click on that and stop, Mike, could you click on cellular data there?
Yeah, well, it's right here.
If you click on it, if you just click on it just to turn the, okay, or show turn it on again and show the options. Yeah, in any event, you can stop the cellular use of data for each phone number you have on your phone. And I really recommend that you do that and only use when you're on a hotel, you have access to free Wi-Fi. Then you use the Wi-Fi for data. But be very careful with your cellular data because your domestic provider will charge you a substantial amount of money. That's my own experience. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Eckhart. All right, Don Winfrey, you have a question.
Yes, I was curious about your experience with AirTags, and are you using them and what on?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I've got AirTags right now in bags, car, that sort of thing. But I think if I was going to be traveling overseas with baggage, I'd put an AirTag in every bag.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some stories in the media you might have seen where an airline can't find your bag, but your AirTag shows up on the phone and you know where it is, even though the airline does not. So that's good advice. If you're going overseas, I'd say an AirTag for every bag would be a good idea.
Yes, and it can even show you that your AirTag went to McDonald's. So that was a very interesting story I read about how this luggage went from place to place to place when it was supposed to be delivered to the person who owned it, and it wasn't. So AirTag.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
Go
there was
ahead.
an article. There was an article that I read about AirTags. People putting AirTags in their luggage, the luggage getting lost and being given to a third party to deliver the luggage to the owner, and the third party was actually keeping the luggage, and like in the trunk of their car, and the person had an AirTag in the luggage. And the AirTag, they were documenting date by date where this luggage was going. It went to McDonald's, it went to this place, that place. And the person would call the airline and tell them, I know where my bag is, or it's in this area. And the airline was basically giving her the runaround because they'd given her luggage to a third party to deliver. So eventually her luggage was found in the trash behind the apartment building of the third party employee who was supposed to be delivering the luggage to her. So
Wow.
AirTags are good.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Bob Hill, you have a question. Bob Hill, are you still here? Do you want to ask your question? Okay, Bob's question, which was sort of related to what we were talking about. Does the native Find My app generally work well in Germany, in England?
I would assume that it does. I haven't been to either of those countries to try it, but it seems to me that as long as the AirTag can pick up a signal from a passing Apple device, and that passing Apple device is connected to the internet somehow, either through Wi-Fi or cellular, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. Anybody have any experience with that?
I guess it would have to have access to the Apple iCloud.
That's Bob. Go.
Yeah, I think that's generally right. I mean, AirTags, when you set up AirTags, they're tied to your phone. But the AirTag itself, I think, has pretty limited wireless range. So it relies on nearby Apple devices that can pick up that short range signal. And the nearby Apple device has a longer range capability, whether it's Wi-Fi or cellular, to relay the location of the AirTag onto you.
I can add info.
I apologize. It took me a couple minutes to find the unmute button. I was thinking more, Mike, in terms of the actual people tracking with the iPhone itself rather than AirTags. And I would assume that would work well so long as there is internet access and so long as there is also the Apple server for iCloud is actually up and running.
Right.
Okay. Jerry, you had a comment you wanted to add to this?
Yes, you asked about UK. My daughter was in the UK last summer, and her one of her daughters left her iPad on the plane, and so they were able to track her daughter's iPad through various things about where it was with the airline and so on. So yes, personal experience. The AirTags work in the UK. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Jerry. All right, Mike, all yours.
Okay. So back to the handout. We're in the middle of page 4. So you've done all this prep work. You have your bucket list. You've shared your itinerary. You're set up for Apple Pay. You're ready to go. And now you're on the plane and you want to listen to something or you want to watch something. A good idea, although a lot of airlines now have Wi-Fi and some cell carriers, I think T-Mobile may be one of them, offers free Wi-Fi on certain carriers. You might want to think about adding content to the phone so that you don't need to use Wi-Fi when you're in the air. So for example, if you have music or audiobooks or podcasts or movies or TV shows, you might want to add those to the phone directly. That way you don't have to stream it. The content will play from the phone itself. So for example, in my TV app, I've purchased a number of movies over the years, and here they all are, right? So if, for example, I wanted to watch The Godfather on the plane, I could open up the app, open up the movie, and you'll notice that there's a button on the left here that says play. This will stream the movie. And over on the right, there's an arrow pointing down. That's the download button, which will download the movie from the internet to my phone directly. So do this before you go, right? If you have a couple of movies you want to watch on the plane or music you want to listen to, get the content on your device. That way you're not reliant upon airline Wi-Fi to do any of this stuff. Similarly, in the music app, when you are looking at your music library, there's a section that's called Downloaded, which will show you all of the music that you have downloaded to the device. And you can view these by song. You can view them by albums. If you look in your music library generally at a list of songs, any song, for example, that has this little downward pointing arrow to the right of it means that this song has been downloaded and it is on the device. If I wanted to add a song that's in the library to my device by downloading it, like for example, here's Adiago in A minor, there's a little 3-dot button over here on the right, which I can tap. And then near the top of this menu, download this song to my phone. And once it's downloaded, now it's on my device. When I play it, it's going to play from the device rather than streaming. So you can do similar things with podcasts, movies, TV shows, etc. When the phone first came out, you guys probably remember hearing a lot about airplane mode. And its airplane mode is accessible from the control center right up here in the upper left-hand corner. It's also accessible right here at the very top of the settings list. Airplane mode used to shut off Wi-Fi, cellular, and Bluetooth. You know, the flight attendants come on and say, please put your phone into airplane mode during takeoff and landing. Now I believe that airplane mode, when you turn it on, will disable Wi-Fi and cellular and leave Bluetooth running, I believe. I haven't had to test this lately, and I don't want to do it during this call. Part of the reason for this, I think, is because if you have an Apple Watch, you can set up the watch and the phone to talk to each other so that when one device turns on airplane mode, it turns it on the other device as well. And when one device turns off airplane mode, it turns it off on the other device as well. So I kind of learned, interestingly enough, when this feature was first introduced with the watch, when you take your phone and you turn on airplane mode, it shuts off the communication between the watch and the phone if Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cellular are all turned off. So you have to turn airplane mode off individually on each device as a result of that. But I believe airplane mode has been changed a bit to leave Bluetooth on, which enables the watch and the phone to talk to each other. But again, you can turn airplane mode on or off from here in the settings app, or you can go to the control center and turn it on or off from the upper left-hand corner. So you're in flight, you've listened to all your music, you've watched all your movies, the plane lands, and now it's time to get around. And that's what the Maps app is for, of course. And as we've seen already, the Maps app is a worldwide map. So it's not just the US. Let's go back to Lisbon. So here's Lisbon, and here's the traffic in Lisbon, I might add. One new feature of Apple's Maps app in iOS 17 is the ability to download an offline map so that you can get around without an internet connection. And that's what this button right here will do for you. Google Maps has had this feature for some time. It's now been added to Apple Maps. There's lots of Maps apps you can get and other ways to get around. It'd be a good idea to have like Uber, Lyft, City Mapper, local transit maps like subway maps, trains, that sort of thing. Google Maps is available as well. There's plenty of Maps apps to help you get around once you get over there. So if I can just zoom in on Lisbon a little bit here and just notice there's a lot of construction on this road right here. We don't want to go this way right about now. Boy, lots of traffic in Lisbon. Okay. Do you have a language barrier when you get overseas? You might. There's lots of translate apps available. Apple's got an app itself called Translate. This one up here on the left. Google's got one too. Google's, I think, is probably a bit better because it's been around a bit longer. I think it translates more languages as well. But you can use these translate apps to translate what you say into some other language. So if I open, this is Apple's Translate app. If I put text in here like hello, it translates it to Spanish beneath. If I want to change languages, I can just tap here. This is the list of languages that Apple's app understands. So if I want to go to Italian, I can do that. And we can swap them if we need to. And one other thing about the Translate app, which is kind of nice, is this conversation button over here on the right. If I tap this, we're having a conversation, back and forth. I can see the entire conversation as it goes. I can speak words and it will translate it. There's also a conversation view button in the upper left-hand corner where I can change the way we're having this conversation from side by side, which is someone's on my immediate right, and we're both looking at the phone screen together. Or if I'm having a face-to-face conversation with somebody, I can switch this to face-to-face, and now the screen flips, right? So I'm speaking English over here, and I'm holding the phone in front of me, and the person on the other side is seeing the Spanish language right side up from their point of view. So if you're interested in using that feature, that's kind of a nice thing in the Translate app. There's also a feature on the phone called Live Text, where you can use the camera app to recognize text that it sees and translate it on the fly. So I'm going to give this a try here. I'm going to open the camera app. I'm going to point it at my screen. And you can see I'm pointing at the slide that's visible on the screen. And the text that's outlined in yellow here is what the phone is recognizing as text. And in the lower right-hand corner of the viewfinder window, there's a little live text icon. I'm just going to give that a tap. And so here is the text that the phone has recognized. And you can select all this text. I'm just dragging across the text to select it. And there's a little menu at the top of the screen, and I can tap that little right arrow, and I can translate this text into another language. Like here's French, right? So that's taking those 3 bullet point items and translating them into French. So you can imagine maybe you are in France, and you go to some restaurant, and they hand you a menu, and it's in French. And you can take your phone out, open up the camera app, and use the live text feature to get a live translation of the text on the menu. Pretty handy. When you're overseas, you're probably going to be taking photos, I would guess. That's why you bring your phone, right? To do anything but make a phone call. So the easiest way to deal with this in the Photos app is to create albums. So as an example here, we'll go back to my Photos app, and I've got an albums button down here at the bottom. And if I want to make a photo album, I can just tap the add button in the upper left-hand corner. And that menu will appear and give me a choice of making a new album or a new shared album. So let's say I want to make a new album, and I'm going to call this Copenhagen, and save it. And now I'm being asked, well, which photos do you want to put in there? Well, I'll put this one in there. And I'll put maybe this one in there. And I can add them together. And now I have a new album called Copenhagen with a couple of different photos in it. This one here is not Copenhagen. This is Rossmore. This is Copenhagen. Okay. So that's great, but maybe I'm on a trip and I want to create an album that I can share with other people. So imagine, you're traveling somewhere with a group maybe, and everybody's taking photos during the course of the day, and then you get together for dinner and everybody says, hey, can you send me that photo? Email me that photo. Can you text me that photo? And that's a fairly laborious process. Instead, what you can do is create a shared album and let everybody contribute to it. So for example, I can tap the plus button in the upper left-hand corner, make a new shared album. We'll call this Denmark, and tap next, and then invite people to participate in the album. So I'm going to invite my wife because she loves getting these things. Every time I teach a class like this, she gets another shared album. So when I create this album, here's my little Denmark album. I can open it up, add photos to it. We'll just pick one and post it. So now this shared album, when I create this shared album, and the phone then sends my wife an invitation to join the album. And if she does, the Denmark album shows up right on her phone, right in the Photos app. And as the owner of this album, I can use this little collaboration button at the top of the screen, and I can invite more people. I can let people who subscribe to the album put their own photos in. So if we are both in Denmark and I'm taking pictures on one side of the street, she's taking pictures on the other side of the street, she can put those photos into that shared album and I'll be able to see them right on my phone. And if you're traveling with people who do not have an iPhone or an Apple device, you can create a public website of your photos just by turning the switch on. And when you share the link that's created with anybody, they can tap that link and the photos in that shared album will show up in a web page on their devices. They can't change anything, they can't add anything to it, but they can at least view the photos from their device. So that is a shared album. And that is all we have time for, unless we have a few more questions.
If you have a question, please raise your hand and we will allow you to ask your question. Michael Tolper, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. I was wondering if you delete the shared album that you created, will your wife's ability to see the picture she's posted to that album also be deleted?
No. I think the photos, she'll be able to still keep the photos, but if I end up deleting the album, it's going to delete the album from my device and everybody else's device.
Okay.
So I don't think the photos are going to disappear. Her photos will not disappear.
They will disappear. She has to download them.
She does?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Janice, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Does the shared album take additional storage space on your phone?
Not really, no. The shared album is actually stored in iCloud. All albums, shared or otherwise, nothing more than a list that points back to the original photo in the library. So for example, when I create this album called Copenhagen that has 2 items in it, the phone does not make a copy of these 2 photos that are in the library and put a second copy into the album. The album thing is just a list that points back to the original photos. So there's really essentially no additional storage required.
Along that line, when I was on a recent trip and I set up a shared album during the trip, when I got home, my photos, although they were all in iCloud, they did not show up on my laptop. They were on my phone and my iPads, but they never came to my laptop, and I had to go to iCloud and download them onto my Mac, and then they downloaded in duplicate. I wonder if anyone else has had those issues.
You had iCloud photos turned on the laptop to begin with, right?
Yes.
Sometimes those things take some time. Seems odd that it took that long. Was your laptop off the whole time you were gone?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
was it sleep mode?
Okay.
It
Yeah.
does sometimes take a long time for the sync to happen, sometimes as long as 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, might depend on how many photos you're talking about as well. I don't know if it'll sync while it's sleeping either. If the device might actually need to be awake. I don't know if it'll sync while sleeping. It might, but I'm just not sure.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bob Hell, can you ask your question? Bob, you have your hand up and your mic is muted. Okay, Deborah, can you go ahead while we're getting Bob hooked up?
Yes, thank you. If you use the shared album to send a video as opposed to a picture, is there a maximum length that the video can be? Thank you.
Practically speaking, I don't think there is. In fact, if you're going to share a video with somebody, that's probably the best way to do it. Attaching a video to an email message, if the video is of any length at all, which I mean like 10 seconds or more, the email servers on the internet are liable to reject it because it's just too large. Now, there's ways to work around that with mail drop, which is a feature that Apple has that instead of rejecting the mail message that has a bunch of oversized attachments on it, it'll let the mail message go through with links to each of the attachments that are saved in your iCloud account. And then when the recipient receives the email, they click the link and the video downloads. So I think you can really avoid that whole email attachment issue, particularly with videos, by creating a shared album and sharing that and letting people go online and get it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Lawrence Jenkins, can you comment on that, please? Can you unmute and comment? Because I've actually found a restriction when I've tried to send a video via messages, and it restricts in length. It was a 4K video, but it did give me a restriction. It wouldn't allow me to send it until I chopped it down to just a few seconds. So Lawrence, can you
the maximum?
Go ahead.
The maximum I've been able to see, I get a warning. It can't be more than 15 minutes.
Okay, good to know.
Sheeta, I'm now unmuted.
All right, Bob, go ahead.
I apologize. Our son, Matt, is now in Passau. I was reading a message from him, and that's why I was distracted. What he had found was one of his traveling companions actually has an Android phone, and when he had added him to the group, iMessages failed. So if you want to use all Apple devices, everything works nicely. If you have a Luddite that has an Android phone, then be cautioned that will cause iMessages to fail. Thank you.
Not necessarily. iMessages do fail in what way? Because I have what you want to call them groups with the different phones, And iMessages, I mean, the messages doesn't fail. It just won't send an iMessage. So.
Right. If you have a group of people that you want to send something to using the Messages app, you guys all know what blue bubbles and green bubbles mean, right? Blue bubbles mean the message goes through Apple's iMessage system. The green bubble means the message is going through your carrier's cell carrier system. What I have found is that if I have a group of 5 people and 4 of them use iPhones and 1 of them uses an Android device, then everybody gets the message through their cell carrier. Just one green bubble user in there is enough to send the message a different way. Now, whether or not the cell carriers have limits on lengths of videos and stuff, that may vary from carrier to carrier. I don't know. I do know that it may take a very long time to send a video through the Messages app using the cell carrier, or even using iMessage for that matter, I imagine, just because videos are so big, right? It's anything over just a few seconds even is going to choke it a little bit. So, it may eventually get there. It just may take some time.
The specific failure he had was that videos would not transmit at all to anyone in the group because there was one Android user in the group.
That doesn't happen with me, and I have Android users in my group. So I don't know if there was some type of restriction that he was experiencing, but that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah, that feels like a length of the video issue, maybe more than anything. But I don't
Thank
know.
you, Sheena.
You're quite welcome, Bob. Okay, Linda, you have a question. You have your hand up. Linda Colvin.
Yeah, when I went to the UK for about 12 days this summer, and actually it was cheaper to just go ahead and get a monthly international plan. So that was a whole new experience for me because I've never tried doing any calls when I'm overseas. When I got home, I got an email message that my iCloud storage needed to be increased. And I had increased it here in the States. And then I realized I was getting this from the UK, and that seemed kind of peculiar to me.
I wonder if that was a spam message. Was it legitimately from Apple?
I'm trying to think. I think I called someone about that, or I might have emailed I forget who helped me set things up. But anyway, yeah, no, it was a whole new experience trying to do international phone calls. And my choir director, we had a group about 80 people that were trying to communicate. He wanted to use WhatsApp. You mentioned that earlier. I had never used it. This is a whole nother question, but I didn't. How you said that's more or less secure?
I'm not so sure WhatsApp is maybe more or less secure. I don't really use it, but I know that there are other messaging apps that are encrypted by default.
Yeah.
If I may add, Mike, WhatsApp is encrypted as well. This is Eckhart.
Yeah.
It is encrypted.
I think most of the messaging services are moving to that if they're not already there.
Well, when I get my new iPhone Black Friday, then I'll be able to do all these things that I don't want to do right now on my 7 Plus.
Oh, yes. Congratulations. You'll be very happy with that upgrade.
Mike,
you might want to check and see if that message actually came from Apple or not. Like, this is a bogus email that looks like it's from Apple, right? If you get one of these on the phone, you can like tap the sender name up here and it'll turn blue, and then tap the sender name again. And you'll see who this email is really from. And this is not Apple, right? Now, there's other clues in this particular message that would tell you this is not Apple writing to me, but sometimes the messages can look pretty good,
That is correct. All right, Edie, you are our last question. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to put a plug in for WhatsApp, because they use it all over the world. It's end-to-end encrypted. And especially if you're trying to do an iMessage group, the messages go by SMS if there's someone in there that doesn't work on the Apple Apple platform or whatever. So we've had, and also most people all over the world use that. So it's easy to communicate with your hotel or your B&B operator or whatever. So that's all. That's what I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. With that, I want to thank all of you for your questions and for your interaction. There are quite a few interesting comments and information placed in the chat today. Please download the chat. We will also send that to you. And with that, if you could please unmute yourself and thank Mike for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Very well done, as usual.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank
Very
you
informative.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Mike.
Thanks for
Excellent.
having me.
Appreciate the
Always
handout.
fun.
Thank you so much.
All right. With that, Eckert, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yes, I want to thank you personally as well, Mike. I know this is not an easy thing to prepare for preparation for a presentation like this.
Well,
I need to mute all so that we don't have the interjection there. And in any event, I'm very, very grateful, Mike, for the work that you've put up, and your handout is excellent. And I think all of us, we learned a lot today. And when we leave for the next trip, nationally or internationally, I think you gave us something to think about and protect ourselves. So I really, really appreciate that very much indeed. Thank you. I also want to talk about next Wednesday, and let me quickly share a slide with you. We will have a new presenter. It's one of our own members, David Abramovitz, and he will give a very interesting presentation with a subject titled Useful, Handy, Neat, Fun Mac iOS Apps. I think that would be extremely informative and probably for all of us. And Shida, I'm very grateful to you that you have identified our member David as a new presenter, and we're looking forward to next Wednesday. With that,
as well.
With that information, I really like to thank all of you for coming, for being so interested, asking so many questions, and we will all see you again next Wednesday. And I think Mike Wozniak will be back to host next week's meeting. If not, I'll be here. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to end this meeting.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Eckert.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Theriers.